So, think about the technology stack your company relies on right now.
Yeah, whatever that baseline is for you.
Right, whatever it is, you might need to just, well, throw it out the window.
Mm.
Because enterprise deployment of agentic AI systems has skyrocketed.
Oh, massively.
Like 340% year over year. 340.
Which is just a staggering number to even wrap your head around.
It really is. And, if you're sitting there thinking this is just Silicon Valley hype, 97% of European enterprises are actively discussing agentic AI right now.
Not just discussing it, they're actually moving on it.
Exactly. But the number that really, stopped me in my tracks comes from a recent market analysis. 63% of mid to large Dutch organizations already have active pilots or production systems.
Right, which completely crushes the global average.
Yeah, the global average is sitting around, what, 48%?
Roughly 48, yeah.
So they are way ahead. And we are looking at a stack of sources today for this deep dive to figure out why this is happening and how it actually works.
You've got a lot of ground to cover.
We do. We've got Forrester market data, EU regulatory white papers, and a highly detailed set of case studies and technical teardowns from AetherLink.
Right, the Dutch AI consulting firm.
Yeah, specifically looking at their AetherDV and AetherMind implementations. So the mission for this deep dive is to understand how these organizations are navigating the strict new rules of 2026.
Because the rules have absolutely changed.
They have. And we want to see how compliance is actually driving massive return on investment instead of just killing it.
Well, the vantage point of 2026 changes the entire conversation around artificial intelligence. I mean, for the business leaders, the CTOs, and the developers tuning in right now, we are no longer talking about a speculative tech trend.
Right. It's not just a shiny new toy anymore.
Exactly. This is a fundamental operational shift. And it's really dictated by the fact that the EU AI Act is now fully operational.
Which changes everything for the European market.
It does. The transition we are analyzing here, moving away from those old reactive chatbots to autonomous workflow managing agents, it's not an optional upgrade anymore.
It's an existential requirement.
It really is. For competitive advantage and regulatory survival, you have to adapt.
So let's unpack that core concept right out of the gate because, we are throwing around the term agented AI, and I feel like we need to clearly separate it from the legacy tools most people are used to.
Yeah, we have to define the jargon.
Right. So the way I look at it, a traditional chatbot is basically like a microwave. You put a very specific query in, you push a button, and it hands you a hot answer.
That's a great way to put it. It only does exactly what you tell it to do.
Right, and nothing more. But agentic AI is it's more like hiring a personal chef. You don't give the chef step-by-step instructions on how to chop an onion.
No, you just tell them you want dinner.
Exactly. The chef looks at the ingredients in your kitchen, plans the menu, goes to the store to get what's missing, cooks the meal, and cleans the kitchen.
All autonomously.
All without you holding its hand. It loops through reasoning steps to achieve that broader goal.
And that's the key difference. Traditional automation handles linear, predictable tasks. But agentic AI handles ambiguity.
Right, the messy stuff.
Yeah, it navigates unpredictable workflows and dynamic environments where decisions have to be made based on, real-time data.
So it's juggling multiple things at once.
Exactly. An agentic system might simultaneously orchestrate a project schedule, query a secure internal database, generate a compliance report, and coordinate across human teams.
All without a user ever taking a single prompt.
Right. It is evaluating its own work, recognizing its own errors, and adjusting its approach completely on the fly.
But, and this is a big but, because these personal chef agents operate autonomously, because they're actively making decisions, routing internal files, and executing code without human prompting, they inherently carry massive operational and legal risks.
Oh, absolutely. The risks are huge.
Which brings us directly to why Den Haag, or The Hague, has become the ultimate testing ground for this technology in Europe.
Yeah, Den Haag is the administrative and political heart of the Netherlands. You have regulatory bodies, government agencies, and major enterprise headquarters all converging in one single city.
It's basically ground zero for this stuff.
It really is. And because of that proximity to regulatory power, compliance cannot be bolted on at the end of a software development cycle.
You can't just build it and then figure out the legal stuff later.
No, absolutely not. The EU AI Act categorizes AI systems by risk level. So if you deploy an agent that manages critical infrastructure or filters job applicants or handles citizen services, you immediately trigger a high-risk classification.
Which sounds incredibly daunting. I'm actually looking at the EU white paper right now on what that high-risk classification actually demands, and if I'm a developer, this looks like a massive bottleneck.
It definitely looks that way on paper.
Right, because you have to build in rigorous human oversight mechanisms. You have to label all AI-generated content for transparency.
Yes, the transparency requirements are very strict.
And the big one, algorithmic impact assessments. Before you even deploy the agent, you have to document and test for any potential risks of bias, discrimination, or unfairness.
Which is a heavy lift for any engineering team.
So I have to play devil's advocate here on behalf of the engineers listening. Doesn't all this intense red tape just put Europe completely behind the rest of the world?
It's a commie fear, yeah.
Because while U.S. companies are running fast and breaking things, European companies are stuck filling out impact assessments and mapping out edge cases.
Well, the reality on the ground is actually entirely counterintuitive to that narrative.
Really? How so?
Regulation isn't killing innovation here. It is actually creating a highly lucrative secondary market for data sovereignty.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. We have to remember that European organizations have been under GDPR jurisdiction since 2018. Personal data simply cannot flow freely across borders to US-based cloud providers or non-compliant third-party APIs.
Right? You can't just ship citizen data off to a random server in California.
Exactly. So rather than falling behind, European enterprises are actively rejecting proprietary black box models from the US. They are building their own sovereign infrastructure from the ground up.
Which makes sense, and actually the Forrester numbers back that up completely. Mistral AI, which is France's leading open source model, has captured a massive 41% market share among European enterprises.
That's a huge piece of the pie.
41%. That means almost half the market is intentionally bypassing the biggest names in Silicon Valley.
And in the Dutch market specifically, development teams are leaning heavily into open source agent orchestration frameworks, things like LangChain and Crew AI.
Okay, so for the technical listeners, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it means instead of sending your sensitive corporate data via an API call to an external server to be processed, you pull an open source model down to your own local servers or a sovereign European cloud.
So you're bringing the brain to the data, not the data to the brain.
Exactly. You use LangChain to connect that local model directly to your internal databases. The data never leaves your controlled environment.
Wow.
So the EU regulation is essentially forcing organizations to build more secure, private, and robust AI architectures. They're building a digital moat.
A digital moat. I like that.
Yeah.
So we have the abstract rules, the heavy mandates, and this drive for data sovereignty. I want to transition to how this actually translates to real-world return on investment.
Because achieving compliance is definitely not cheap.
Right. So let's look at a concrete, boots-on-the-ground case study executed by the AetherLink consulting team, specifically right there in Den Haag.
Yeah, this is a perfect example. A mid-sized government agency in Den Haag partnered with AetherLink to completely overhaul their permit processing system.
Which, from what I understand, was just a massive headache.
Oh, historically, it was a massive bottleneck.
Okay.
A single permit application required manual routing across 5 different departments.
5 departments for 1 permit.
Yeah. And the average processing time was 23 days per application. And there were significant error rates because humans were manually cross-referencing highly complex, constantly changing local compliance rules.
So the microwave approach of just giving workers a better search tool wasn't cutting it anymore.
Not at all.
So AetherLink brought in the personal chefs. But it wasn't just one monolithic AI trying to do everything, right?
No, far from it. A monolithic model handling everything is just a recipe for hallucinations and security breaches.
Right. You don't want one giant brain doing all the job.
Exactly. So they deployed a custom multi-agent orchestration system featuring 4 distinct specialized agents working in sequence.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the first one?
First, you have the intake agent. Its sole job is to receive the applications and extract the key information using multimodal processing.
Meaning it's using vision models to read, like, messy handwritten forms, weirdly formatted PDFs, and unstructured emails.
Yes.
Just turning all of that chaos into clean, structured data.
Correct. And once the data is structured, the intake agent hands it over to the compliance agent.
Okay, and what does that one do?
This agent autonomously cross-references the application against regulatory databases, EU directives, and local Den Haag zoning ordinances in real time.
Wow. So it's basically doing the legal heavy lifting.
Exactly. It checks the specific parameters of the permit against the current law.
Yeah.
And once it clears that hurdle, the routing agent takes over.
Making sure it goes to the right person.
Right. It intelligently assigns the workload to the appropriate human department, but it does so dynamically.
Wait, what do you mean dynamically?
Well, it bases the routing on the complexity of the permit and the real-time capacity of the staff members. So it knows who is overloaded and who has free time.
That is incredibly efficient. And while all this back-end workflow management is happening, there is a fourth agent facing the public.
Yes, the communication agent. It proactively sends status updates to the citizens so they aren't left in the dark wondering where their application is.
Which is usually the most frustrating part of dealing with the government.
Exactly. And crucially, if the compliance agent flags an anomaly it can't resolve, the communication agent instantly escalates that specific edge case to a human supervisor with a summary of the problem.
So the results from this 6-month deployment show exactly why that 63% adoption rate in the Netherlands was happening.
The numbers are pretty undeniable.
They really are. Processing time plummeted 67%. They went from 23 days to an average of 7.6 days per permit.
Huge difference for the citizens.
And the error rate dropped by 84%, primarily because, well, an AI compliance agent doesn't suffer from decision fatigue at 4 p.m. on a Friday while reading EU directives.
Yeah, the AI doesn't need coffee breaks.
Right. And overall, operational costs were reduced by 34%, but, this raises a major operational question.
The human element.
Exactly. If agents are autonomously handling the intake, all the compliance checking, and all the routing, what happens to the actual human government workers?
Well, the assumption is usually mass displacement, right? People losing their job.
Oh, that's a fear.
But AetherLink's post-deployment analysis showed that staff satisfaction actually increased significantly.
Wait, really? Their satisfaction went up?
Yes, because you have to consider what those workers were doing before. They were drowning in routine paperwork, manual data entry, and basic repetitive rule checking.
Just totally mind-numbing tasks.
Exactly. The agents absorbed the administrative, soul-crushing parts of the job. This freed the human workers to focus entirely on complex judgment calls, nuanced edge cases, and high-level citizen interaction.
So their jobs actually became more meaningful.
Right. The nature of their workday shifted from manual processing to analytical oversight. And because the system was designed with the EU AI Act in mind from day one, every single agent action was logged and fully auditable by regulators.
With all that citizen data confined strictly to Dutch cloud infrastructure?
Precise.
That is a massive operational shift for back-end government processes. But I want to pivot to the front lines now, because it's not just back-end operations being transformed. Agents are fundamentally changing how brands interact directly with the public.
Oh, the marketing side is fascinating.
It is, and it introduces a whole new set of transparency challenges under these new laws.
Yeah, the landscape of customer engagement in 2026 is practically unrecognizable compared to just a few years ago.
Forrester reports that 79% of European marketing leaders are currently deploying or piloting social media agents.
And we need to be really clear here. These are not tools that just schedule posts for Tuesday morning.
Right. This isn't Hootsuite or Buffer.
No. These are agents engaging in real time. They are autonomously identifying viral trends, analyzing community sentiment, responding to user comments in highly personalized ways, and even launching dynamic promotional campaigns.
All without a human ever hitting send.
Exactly.
That level of autonomy is incredibly powerful for a marketing team, but the EU AI Act brings a massive hammer down on this specific use case.
It does. Brands cannot pretend an agent is a human.
Right. You cannot obscure the fact that an AI is generating the content or managing the interaction.
It's a strict rule.
So if I'm a CMO, I'm thinking about the early days of sponsored content on social media. Like, remember when influencers would hold up a product and pretend they magically discovered it?
Yeah, the Wild West of influencer marketing.
Exactly. But eventually, regulators stepped in and mandated the hashtag ad tag so consumers knew they were being marketed to. In 2026, brands have to do the exact same thing for AI interactions.
And the engineering challenge there is immense.
Yeah.
How do you implement that transparency without destroying the personalized magic of the engagement?
Right, because you can't just slap a robotic disclaimer at the end of every personalized comment.
No, it completely ruins the brand voice. The AetherLink AI Lead Architecture service actually focuses heavily on this exact problem. You have to embed governance frameworks directly into the agent's core system prompt.
So it's baked into its personality.
Exactly. The transparency has to be designed into the agent's behavioral instructions, so it naturally identifies itself as a digital assistant within the organic flow of the conversation.
And beyond just labeling themselves, these marketing agents have to navigate those algorithmic impact assessments we talked about earlier.
It's especially regarding bias and how they personalize content.
Right, because if a social media agent autonomously decides to offer, say, a 20% discount code to one demographic, but completely ignores another based on inferred profile data,
That brand is instantly in violation of EU anti-discrimination mandates,
which is a PR nightmare and a legal nightmare.
which is why the underlying technical architecture is where organizations either succeed or fail spectacularly. You can have the best marketing strategy in the world, but if the infrastructure allows the agent to violate compliance or hallucinate a discount, the fines will wipe out the ROI immediately.
So for the CTOs and developers listening right now, the million-dollar question is, how do you actually build this infrastructure?
It's the most important question.
Right. How do you deploy multi-agent systems that are capable of complex reasoning without just bankrupting your cloud API budget or creating massive security loopholes?
To understand how this works safely and economically, we need to look at two crucial frameworks: MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol, and RG, Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Okay, let's start with the economic side of things.
Good idea, because the most common trap organizations fall into is using massive, highly expensive reasoning models like a GPT-4 or Claude Opus for every single tiny task an agent performs.
Right, which is just throwing money away. Like
Yeah.
I said earlier, you don't need a Michelin star chef to microwave a Hot Pocket.
That is the perfect analogy. If the intake agent is just extracting a name and address from a PDF, calling a massive reasoning model is a massive waste of compute credits.
Precisely. So how do they fix that?
Effective cost optimization requires dynamic model routing. Enterprises are matching the task complexity to the appropriate model.
So using different brains for different jobs.
Exactly. They utilize smaller, highly efficient, fine-tuned open-source models for basic tasks like data extraction or semantic routing.
And save the big guns for the hard stuff.
Right. They only call the massive, expensive models when the compliance agent encounters a complex legal contradiction that requires deep reasoning.
Makes total sense.
Add in technical strategies like caching agent memory so the AI doesn't have to reprocess the exact same regulatory document every single time a similar permit comes in, and utilizing asynchronous processing for non-urgent background tasks.
And what's the financial impact of that?
By combining these, development teams are slashing inference costs by 40 to 60%. Without sacrificing any output quality.
That is a massive saving. But let me jump in here because understanding how MCP and RAG fit into this is critical for the security side.
Absolutely.
Wait, if I'm picturing this right, the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, is basically like the strict bouncer at an exclusive VIP nightclub, right?
That's exactly what it is.
Before an autonomous agent can access your company's CRM or read a sensitive customer database, it has to go through the MCP layer.
It has to get past the bouncer.
Right. The bouncer checks the VIP list to ensure that specific agent has explicit permission to access that specific data vector.
And it does more than just check the list.
Yeah, more importantly, for the EU AI Act, the bouncer writes down exactly what time the agent went in, what specific data it pulled, and what time it left. It creates a perfect, unalterable audit trail.
Which prevents an agent from going rogue and pulling data it shouldn't have access to.
So it's totally auditable.
The auditability is the key factor there. Before MCP, agents were often given broad API keys, which is a massive security vulnerability.
Just handing over the master keys to the building?
Right. But MCP provides a standardized deterministic interface layer. It enforces centralized access control and rate limiting.
So if a marketing agent malfunctions and gets stuck in a loop,
MCP stops it from making 10,000 API calls in an hour and racking up a massive cloud bill.
okay, that covers MCP. But how does RAG fit into the compliance picture? Because we know hallucinations, where the AI just invents facts, are the biggest deal breaker for enterprise adoption.
Yeah, hallucinations are the enemy. RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, is how you control the information the agent uses to reason.
How does that work?
Instead of letting the AI generate an answer based on the statistical weights of its initial training data, which is how those hallucinations happen, RAG connects the model to a vector database of your company's approved, highly accurate internal documents.
So it's like giving it an open book test.
Exactly. If the compliance agent needs to evaluate a Den Haag building code, it doesn't guess.
It looks it up.
It queries the internal RAG system, retrieves the exact current legal document, and is forced to synthesize its answer exclusively from that retrieved context.
So it's essentially a verifiable citation engine. Every output the agent generates must trace back to a specific vector in your database.
Right. There's a paper trail for the thought process.
Which means if an EU auditor knocks on your door and asks why the agent denied a specific permit, you don't just shrug and say, well, the AI decided.
No. You can pull the logs and show them the exact internal document the RVAG system retrieved to inform that decision.
That level of traceability is incredible. And I
Yeah.
guess that's why off-the-shelf generic AI tools are failing in enterprise environments right now.
They absolutely are failing. You need custom architecture. You need systems like what the Aether DV team builds.
Stuff that actually fits the business.
Yeah. Infrastructure that maps to your legacy APIs, enforces MCP security, utilizes RAG for factual accuracy, and maintains EU regulatory compliance by design from the ground up.
Which brings us to the strategic roadmap. Because if you are a business leader listening to this, you don't just flip a switch and deploy a 4-agent orchestration system on a Tuesday.
No, definitely not. A responsible deployment strategy, particularly in a high-risk regulatory environment like we're talking about, is generally a 4-phase approach spanning 10 to 12 months.
Okay, take us through the phases.
Phase 1, the first 3 months, is pure assessment and architecture design.
Just laying the groundwork.
Right. This is where you conduct your compliance reviews, establish data lineage, and design the MCP and RJAG infrastructure. You have to map out exactly how the agents will interact with your existing legacy systems.
Okay, in phase 2?
Phase 2, months 4 through 6, is your proof of concept. You build pilot agents in a sandboxed environment and run rigorous evaluation frameworks.
So this is where you conduct the algorithmic impact assessment.
Exactly. You hit the agents with adversarial prompts to test for bias and safety vulnerabilities.
You test the chefs in a fake kitchen, throw everything that could go wrong at them, and ensure they don't burn the place down before you open the restaurant.
That is exactly the approach.
Yeah.
Then phase 3, months 7 to 9, is production deployment.
Taking it live.
Taking it live, but carefully. You scale the successful pilots out of the sandbox, establish the human-in-the-loop oversight processes, and turn on the monitoring systems.
And the final phase.
Finally, phase 4, month 10 and beyond, is optimization.
Tweaking it.
Yeah. You start reducing costs through that dynamic model routing we discussed, refine the agent behavior based on real-world log data, and expand the architecture to handle new use cases.
This has been such a deep dive. As we wrap up, I want to crystallize what we've covered from all these sources.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. My top takeaway for you listening is this. You have to stop thinking of Agentic AI as just a faster search engine or a smarter software tool.
It's so much more than that.
Right. It is an entirely new class of digital workforce. When you deploy agents that can plan, reason, retrieve secure data, and execute multi-step workflows autonomously, it requires a fundamental shift in how you design your business. You are redesigning the actual flow of work within your organization.
And my top takeaway is that in 2026, compliance is no longer a roadblock to innovation. It is the actual architectural blueprint.
That's a great way to frame it.
The strict mandates of the EU AI Act in places like Den Haag are forcing companies to build better, safer, and highly auditable systems.
Building custom sovereign AI infrastructure from day one is not just a legal requirement.
No, it is the only viable way to scale securely in the European market. If you treat data governance and transparency as an afterthought, your agentic deployments will fail the moment they hit the real world.
I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder long after you finish listening to this deep dive. Let's zoom out for a second.
Let's hear it.
Imagine your company has deployed a highly optimized multi-agent system to manage your supply chain. These agents are autonomously finding the best materials, optimizing shipping routes, and managing inventory.
Sounds like a dream scenario.
Right. Now imagine your primary supplier has also deployed their own autonomous agent system to maximize their profits and manage their warehouse. What happens when your AI agents and their AI agents start independently negotiating contracts, adjusting pricing, and resolving disputes with each other in real time in milliseconds without any human involvement?
It's inevitable.
When those two autonomous systems reach a finalized agreement, who is legally responsible for the handshake?
That is the big question.
For more AI insights, visit etherlink.ai.